Hello everyone, it's so great to see all of you here. Welcome to the NATO Youth Summit 2024. I'm Sarah Franzén.
And I'm called Johan Skoog, and we will be your masters of ceremony here in Stockholm. But today is about you, and how your contribution to peace and security is shaping the tomorrow we all share.
This is the 4th edition of the NATO Youth Summit. It's taking place on both sides of the Atlantic. We're starting in Europe, here in Stockholm, Sweden, and this afternoon we'll be moving on to Miami, Florida, in the United States.
And this year's event is very special. We're also marking the 75th anniversary of NATO. But also, it's very symbolic to have the summit here in Stockholm, as Sweden celebrates its entry into the military alliance.
This year, the NATO Youth Summit is the result of a unique collaboration between NATO, the Aspen Institute US, Aspen Institute Romania, the Swedish Defence University, and the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency.
So here in the room today, we have a select group of almost 200 people. I think we're a little bit less, but almost 200 people. We try to overbook a little bit, you know. But each and every one of you represent different sectors and institutions, and we're so glad to have you here. We also have media representatives and a select group of content creators with us today.
And we're very pleased to have 10 winners of the NATO Youth Summit Challenge, and we'll hear from some of them later today. Last but not least, there are thousands more participants joining us online. Welcome.
Yeah, and you'll see that we have some exciting and interactive program with something for everyone in the Alliance and beyond. As mentioned, we have participants from all over around the world. So if you want to share your own thoughts on social media, please use the hashtag NATO Youth Summit. So hashtag NATO Youth Summit when you share this day with everyone else.
So get ready to get involved. During the session, during the sessions, you'll be invited to ask questions, participate in polls, and play games. In order to fully enjoy this and the interactive parts of the event today, and discover all our networking opportunities, now is the time to get out your phones. I don't see anyone getting out their phones.
Don't you guys have phones?
And open the WebEx Events app.
Well, if you don't already have it downloaded, you'll find a link to it in the email confirming your registration to today's event. Or you can search for WebEx Events in your App Store or Microsoft Store if you're an Android user. Once in the app, search for 2024 NATO Youth Summit and add the event. This will allow you to vote and contribute to the interactive activities conducted throughout the day.
Before we introduce our first session, let's run a quick poll using the app. Are you ready?
Yeah!
Come on, are you ready?
Come on! Interaction!
The question is, what do you see as the most pressing challenge to global security today?
So in order to vote, go to the polls function in the app and submit a response. And it should be that you can pick one of each selected answers. So again, what is the most pressing challenge to global security today? You can think about like your own experiences, your own hopes and fears. Is it disinformation, Russia's continued aggression, China's rise, climate change, weaponization of emerging and disruptive technologies, or maybe the erosion of democracy? Who knows? Sarah, what do you think?
Maybe disinformation?
Yeah. Oh, if you would ask me, I would think maybe Russia. I'm a natural Swede, so of course, you know, our history is not.
But I think we're getting some answers on the poll right behind us. What do you think?
Yeah, probably.
Well, let's have a look.
Yeah.
Well, disinformation.
Oh, yeah.
30% and military actions by Russia.
Want to keep it kind of even
Erosion of
here.
democracy. Wow.
I hope we didn't disinform you by Sarah picking disinformation. Also, the color seems to be appropriate for your dress code.
Yeah.
And disinformative. But yeah, now we would like to give the floor to the first set of speakers and co-host for the NATO Youth Summit here in Stockholm.
So let's welcome on stage Charlotte Petri Gornitzka, the Director General of the Civil Contingencies Agency, and Robert Egnell, the Vice-Chancellor of the Swedish Defence University. Let's give them a warm applause.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, dear future leaders, or maybe why future? Dear leaders today and for the futures. And dear participants, my name is Charlotte Petri Gornitzka and I'm the Director General at the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency, in short, MSB. And this gentleman here, he will have to listen to me for 7 minutes before he's able to speak, so bear with him. So thank you again, and as a co-host of with the Swedish Defence University, NATO and Aspen Institute, it is truly an honor to open the 2024 NATO Youth Summit here in Stockholm. Whether you are watching at home, online, or in person here, you are so very welcome. I am a firm believer in including young leaders. And it's not just because Sweden is the youngest member of NATO. Could be the reason, but it's much more serious than that. For me, it's been something that's been guiding me through the whole of my working life, through Save the Children and UNICEF and other agencies that I have been fortunate enough to work with. Decision-making is about what's going to be lived with by many young people. And for that reason, your perspectives are so important to be included here and now. So a firm believer, and that's also why I'm so honored to have the opportunity to say welcome to this NATO Youth Seminar. These are serious times that we live in today, troubled times. Putin's stated ambition in his war aggression against Ukraine presents a dramatic challenge to Sweden and NATO's security, prosperity, and freedom. Our democracies and the international rules-based order are under attack. Each of us has a job to do in this situation. Each of us, whether it's through our studies, our work, or volunteering, each of us can contribute to strengthening NATO's collective defense. Each of us can preserve the peace and security of the alliance. And in this context, I want to highlight 3 perspectives. Firstly, a resilient, robust society is NATO's first line of defense, NATO's Article 3. For us at MSB, resilience is our starting point, increasing society's ability to withstand a crisis or armed attack. And we see this playing out every day in Ukraine. The people's resistance, willingness to defend their country, and ability to keep their society functioning in the midst of war. Resilient societies contribute to deterrence and defense. A resilient society is able to overcome and respond to adversity. A second perspective, total defense. In Sweden and among the Nordic countries, civil defense is the counterpart of military defense. Together, they make up total defense. And I believe that this total defense concept can make a valuable contribution to NATO. Total defense draws upon all of society's strengths, the public and private sector, armed forces, and civil society. Civil defense includes all non-military activities. Everything from convening national and local governments to food supply, communications, healthcare and emergency services. It ensures functioning of vital services during crisis or war. All of this that we see happening in Ukraine. In Sweden, we are currently making historic investments in our total defense. My third and final point is actually to reiterate what I said earlier. It is an important point, and it is about you. Every individual can contribute to NATO's collective deterrence and defense. We all have a role to play in making our societies more resilient. We all can contribute. It begins at home, with our family, our friends and neighbors. It continues in the classroom or at work, or as a student, as employees or employers or entrepreneurs. And it can continue in our free time through volunteering. In 2018, just 2 years before the pandemic, MSB sent out an educational brochure to all households in Sweden. If crisis or war comes, maybe you didn't see it because you don't read brochures. My younger friend here, he has obviously an iPad, so. But the thing is, joke aside, this brochure was read by almost everyone and very appreciated because it was possible to kind of save. And the message of sending it through the old-fashioned post office to every household was actually a signal that this is important. It can be downloaded, so just so you know. And the brochure describes how to be prepared for extreme situations, such as weather, cyber attacks, or worst case, a military conflict. Everyone living in Sweden has a responsibility towards one another, and ultimately, the country's security. If you are well informed and prepared, you can take action and you can help others. The brochure is being revised as we speak, and later this year in the fall, it's going to be, a new version, taking its kind of point of departure in the society we live in today, which is more complex and perhaps a situation that has deteriorated. And again, it's a brochure, but we will use other channels as well. Nationally, MSB will continue to bolster Sweden's civil preparedness and integrating our work in NATO processes. Because in the end, it is our common efforts that defines our society's ability to resist in times of crisis or war. In these troubled times we live in, we need to reaffirm the opening lines of the Washington Treaty. To unite our efforts for collective defense and for the preservation of peace and security. To safeguard the freedom, principles of democracy, individual liberty, and the rule of law. We do this together because it makes us stronger. With this, I'd like to once again welcome you to the NATO Youth Summit in Stockholm, and now give the word to Robert Egnell, Vice-Chancellor, Swedish Defence University. Please, Robert, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, and what an honor. What an honor it is to share the stage with you and to be able to say welcome to all of you. This is going to be an incredibly inspiring day, I'm sure. And it is a special summit, as you highlighted already, not only because there's one, or even we could say two brand new members in Finland and Sweden, but also this alliance has been steadfast for 3/4 of a century. I think historians would call that remarkable, because most alliances vanish quite quickly, and especially in the face of war and threats. So this is quite an achievement for us to stand here for this celebration. 3/4 of a century, that gives us a pause to reflect on that past, but also to look to the future. But for us in Sweden, it's so new. It's more about thinking about what does this actually mean? What does it mean for a country to have signed the Washington Treaty and to be an ally? What does it mean for us individually, and how should we react? Does it feel different? It does feel a little different when we meet international colleagues already, I can tell you. And inside it also feels a bit different. And I can go 2 years back in time, because that's when I think I started this internal journey for me in a very serious way. I was in Hamburg for what was then the 51st Conference of Commandants of NATO. That's when all the vice-chancellors, presidents, or commandants, as we're called in military lingo, meet and share notes, talk about current challenges, future, education of especially officers, of course. And on the very day that conference started, Sweden and Finland submitted the formal applications in Brussels to become NATO members. And these conferences always start with an icebreaker. So as Mika, my Finnish colleague, and I entered the room together by chance, there was an eruption of applause and welcoming as we entered that room. I'd say much to my surprise, and it wasn't just an applause, it was quite literally a huge embrace by everyone in the room. And when you're hugged by a room full of 2-star generals, you know that something special is happening, right? So you feel very safe. So what did I learn that day? Well, that this is not just an alliance based on mutual security interests and collective defense. This is an alliance that was very much funded, as Charlotte also highlighted, on very strong principles for that collective defense. It's about something much more. It's about mutual recognition of friendship, of doing this together. And as all of these people in the room highlighted, it was not about congratulations to you and Finland for starting the membership process. It was more of a gratulation to all of us, because this will strengthen the alliance and our collective security. So that highlighted that mutual sense of creating security and defense together as an alliance. It's much more than just a signatory approach to and mutual defense interests. The warmth of the embrace of my colleagues highlighted this fact very clearly. And as it happens, 2 days ago, I came home from Washington, D.C., where the 53rd Conference of Commandants was taking place. Again, of course, that was the first time we participated as full members. How was that different? Well, first of all, there was a whole day for members only I had no idea about, since I had only been there as a partner before. So it opened a number of doors. That's something they highlighted at the embassy as well, that we are received somewhat differently these days as a full member of the alliance. But rather than speaking about the Swedish membership and our identity, it's perhaps interesting to talk about what we, and I'd say mostly old men in that conference, were talking about, because we were talking about you. We were talking about the current challenges we're facing, obviously, the increasingly complex context of differing threats. And it's not just Russia's horrible invasion of Ukraine and China's behavior in the Pacific. Those are the traditional security threats. We're also witnessing everything from cyber warfare to climate change, from terrorism to disinformation campaigns, from extreme poverty to pandemics. There's no shortage of mutual challenges out there on this 75th anniversary of NATO. So we need to think about how that affects us all. We obviously talked a lot about the current disruptive and emerging technologies, how that will impact us, but especially how can we train the future leaders to be effective in this environment? What do they need to know? And it's not just about taking a course in technology. What we realized, all of us, is that we need to create very flexible minds, adaptive thinkers, critical mindsets that can learn, unlearn, and relearn constantly throughout their careers to adapt to a changing environment. And that is quite a challenge for us, but something we are embracing. As we face these challenges, I'd like to emphasize a few quite important points. The first one is, as an alliance, we must reaffirm our commitment to collective defense. That's the very heart of this alliance, obviously. But what does that mean in an era of hybrid warfare, of unconventional threats and disinformation? And we must really remain vigilant in the face of these emerging challenges and how we think about collective defense in this era so that we remain vigilant. Secondly, we must also recognize the importance of NATO's role in promoting stability and security beyond our borders through peacekeeping, conflict preservation, and capacity building around the world. As we look to the future, the Partnership for Peace program is hugely important. Sweden has been a beneficiary of it for decades, and now it's our turn to contribute as a member to that program. We also need to address the root causes of conflict. We need to promote diplomacy, development, good governance. This is also something we have to work not only through the UN, through NATO, obviously, but also through the European Union and the United Nations. Thirdly, we really must think hard about new and disruptive technologies and how to harness that to our advantage and not just think defensively. It's everything from artificial intelligence to quantum computing, from space-based assets to unmanned systems. This is a technological revolution that will probably transform our societies in ways we are only beginning to see the outlines of at the moment. So that's something we need to think very hard about. And finally, we must recognize that NATO's strength doesn't just lie in its military power, but in that warm embrace I felt in the room in Hamburg 2 years ago. It's in our values and it's in our ideals as well. So as an alliance of democracies, we must remain steadfast in our commitment to upholding human rights, promoting democracy and defending the rule of law. In this age of authoritarian resurgence and democratic backsliding, NATO must serve as a bulwark against tyranny and oppression, standing up for freedom and justice wherever they are threatened. In conclusion, I'm sorry or happy to say that this will be the challenges of your future. But I'm delighted that we are here today discussing all of these things together and how we can make a contribution individually as a country, but most importantly as an alliance. So thank you so much.